Unity on the Bay. Hope you're having a wonderful Monday evening. It's been a good day here overall, and I'm excited about what we're going to be exploring tonight. It's a book that is not really all that well known to my knowledge, but it has certainly been a game changer for me. Welcome to another episode of Shelf Discovery. We call it Shelf Discovery because part of the experience is that I go to my bookshelf behind me sometime during the weekend prior to being here with you and pick a book that has really impacted my life and offers some insights that I want to share and discuss with you. This is an interactive program, so I really want to encourage you to let me know you're here by putting your name in the comments and also engaging in the dialogue as best one can do by offering comments. I say that because most of you probably know my position with spirituality is that we all serve in different ways as one another's teachers and students. So as I am sharing with you tonight in the hopes that some enlightenment is in the words that I offer, I hope that you will share in return your perspectives, and they do not have to agree. Hey, Pam, you're so faithful, Pam. You're here every Monday night, and I really do love and appreciate you for that commitment and being a part of this experience. You know the book, so I'll go ahead and reveal it. I know it's in the title already. It's The Way of Mastery, and this is a very long book that's broken into three parts. The Way of Mastery, subdivided into the way of the heart, the way of transformation, and the way of knowing. And you can see it's many, many pages. The information that it shares is very similar to that of the messages you will find in A Course in Miracles. This book, like A Course in Miracles, claims that it is channeled by Jesus Christ, Jeshua. Reminds me of Kevin Rice. Me too, Pam. In fact, Kevin is the one who brought this book into the field of my awareness a number of years ago. And I was so excited about it that I chose it as one of the books we were going to discuss in my Monday night Mystical Minds class that used to be. And I thought, well, we'll spend a few weeks studying this book. We ended up spending the entire year simply because we could hardly make it through barely a paragraph without engaging in deep conversation about it. Some of the ideas, and I believe even the one I'm going to propose to you tonight, are a little bit difficult for the conditioned mind. And every one of us walks around with a conditioned mind, call it what you like, ego, personal nature, personal identity. Hi, Nancy. I'm glad you're here. Hi, David. I feel like we have little parties on Monday nights, when we come together like this. It's a beautiful thing. One of the most beautiful things I think that actually has come out of the challenges and the turmoil of the COVID situation is that we have really been almost pushed into expanding our creativity in terms of how we communicate. I actually think that's what's happening on the planet right now with all the chaos and confusion that we're experiencing, is that it's pushing us out of the conditioned mind. That because something was one way yesterday, it's going to be that way today, and it will be that way tomorrow. That's all conditioning. And conditioning, loves to verify, validate itself in our external experience. So tonight, we're going to be looking into a particular section of The Way of Mastery that is called Establishing a Relationship with the Comforter. Establishing a relationship with the Comforter. Now, the Comforter is the terminology utilized in The Way of Mastery. You could also refer to it as the Holy Spirit. You could refer to it as the Christ consciousness. It operates on the premise that while we are each and every one of us one with ourselves and ultimately with one another, we have different dimensions to our consciousness, if you will. It's the best word I can think of. Different dimensions. I've bubbled and boiled it down to just a couple. that I refer to as the unconditioned nature of ourselves and the conditioned nature. And in different vernacular, that would be like the Christ as opposed to the ego. We're a combination of these two dimensions of consciousness or character. And part of the challenge that we face in life right now, I believe, and let me know what you think about this, is that we have become so immersed, so preoccupied, so almost transfixed on the conditioned nature of ourselves that we have forgotten there's this whole other incredible resource available to us. Perhaps forgotten, but never disconnected from. Hey, Margarita. How you doing, Maggie? And yes, hello to our Unity on the Bay family. So in establishing a relationship with the Comforter, as the Way of Mastery refers to it, we are establishing a relationship, in my terminology, with this unconditioned nature of ourselves. Mooji calls it pure awareness, undisturbed by the conceptual mind, undisturbed by ideas that for the most part are not true, but because we've invested our belief in them, they seem true to us and they produce results in our lives according to them. That's what I was talking about yesterday at Unity on the Bay. Let's hear what the Way of Mastery has to say about establishing a relationship with the Comforter. I highly recommend that you establish a relationship with the Comforter as though it were a relationship with a good friend, indeed, the best of friends, until you reach a point where virtually every decision is given to that mind. Well, old buddy, should I turn left or right? So we are learning that there is an internal resource available to us that provides a direct conduit to infinite intelligence and creativity. This is available to us. It's interesting, isn't it, how we go searching everywhere, especially when we get on the spiritual path. We're looking for the right answers from the right text or from the right speaker or from the right resource, when all the while we have, though perhaps forgotten, we have this ability, we have this dimension of our consciousness, if you will, the Comforter, the unconditioned self, that is always like on standby, waiting to give us exactly the answers that we need to move effectively and powerfully through our lives. But we have forgotten that this resource is available to us. Many of us feel alone and bereft without that which we need in order to make the best decisions and move in the best directions in our life. And what Way of Mastery is telling us here, I believe, is that you have a friend. You have a best friend, and that best friend lives within you as your state of pure awareness, as your Comforter. And I think it's a beautiful word, Comforter, because I tell you, when you begin to realize, even in the slightest form or fashion, that this resource is available to you, the comfort that comes, especially during troubled times, challenging times, is unbelievable. It's the most phenomenal resource. Way of Mastery goes on to say, and this is a big one, especially for those of us that are firmly entrenched in our conditioned mind, believing that we are in charge of our lives, that we are the only ones that we have to make decisions with, and we're unaware of this higher dimension of our consciousness. So Way of Mastery says, and let's just take a breath here, you relinquish ownership of your life. You relinquish ownership of your life. Goes on to say, it is only the ego that thinks it can possess life. Spirit knows that life possesses it. That is, life has birthed you. The mind of God has given rise to you. You are God's. You are not the owner of life. You are the recipient of it. You relinquish ownership of your life. To the ego mind, to the conditioned nature within us, that statement makes absolutely no sense. You relinquish ownership of your life, because to the conditioned mind, to the egoic mind, it would say, "Hi, Carmen, love you too." It would say, "This is my life. I am responsible for it. I need to make the decisions." Sometimes, friends, when I look back over my life and I see those pivotal moments when things really changed for me, there is a part of my conditioned nature that would like to jump in and say, "I made that decision. I chose that direction." But if I'm really and perfectly and completely honest with myself, I cannot make that statement. I realize that in truth, when I get beyond my idea of running my life has been being lived from the very beginning. When I've been in difficult circumstances and situations and a way opens up, it really has not been because of my personal craftiness or cleverness. It's been because somehow I was able to tap into and allow, which is a very important word, to tap into and allow this recognition of my life being lived by a higher dimension of my own consciousness to really sink in, and allow it then to bring forth into my life the experiences, the changes, the challenges, and the obvious victories that have brought me to where I am today. I cannot, in all honesty, say that I have been living this life. So at first it may seem a lot to say, I'm going to relinquish ownership of my life. But I love what it says here in terms of understanding that only the egoic mind thinks it can possess life. And doesn't the egoic mind love to possess? I'm just speaking from personal experience here, okay? But rather, spirit knows that life possesses it. Then it says, and Carmen, this actually reminded me of you when I was reading it, because a lot of times you'll pose things in the form of questions, which I think is very healthy, because it's not like we're trying to tell anybody what to do. We're just posing questions. Would you consider this? Would you be open to this? So in way of mastery, would you then be willing to make the decision to become a grand master of allowance? You can begin with the simplest of things, such as, and I love that even the voice that's channeling this, Jeshua, has a sense of humor. So you can begin with the simplest of things, such as, I allow this toothpaste to taste exactly the way it tastes, with no complaint. It just is as it is. So we begin to develop this ability to master the art of allowing through the simple things, little things. It is the changing of your seasons. If it is the changing of your seasons, would you be willing to not lament the end of summer and the coming of fall, but would you be willing to experience that change? For rest assured, please listen well. In the realm of the world, which is the realm of perception, the only thing that exists is constant change. Underneath it, there is changeless reality, that which pervades the changeable. But when there is resistance to change, rest assured, there is a mind living in delusion. Carmen says, tall order. Amen, sister. Tall order indeed. And it's not telling us, which I love, that we have to allow. It's just saying, would you consider allowing? Would you consider lessening the level of resistance? And what I've found is that when I am experiencing resistance, and it happens more frequently than I would like to admit, on major and minor levels of my being, if I can remember that this resistance is not showing up in order to promote my choosing a different route or changing external circumstances. The resistance is always there, but for one reason, and that is to recognize that the egoic nature or the conditioned mind is trying to prescribe a certain way of being and a certain direction for my own soul's growth that is not in alignment with what my higher nature, the comforter as described in Way of Mastery, or the unconditioned nature that I am, is not in alignment with that same direction. And so it's always a call for me to breathe deeply, which is really one of the simplest but most effective spiritual practices I know, to breathe deeply, and to be able to say, I am willing to accept and allow, and maybe even on a good day, invite and encourage this change to take place. I am willing to recognize that my resistance is coming from the strong desire to control situations by virtue of the fact that I believe I am living my life and I am responsible. And I'm not promoting irresponsibility here. I'm promoting giving responsibility to our lives and all of our decisions and directions in which we move to this higher nature, to end this seemingly constant need to remain in conditioned self or conditioned nature, which is always, it seems to me, born out of historical or past experiences. Do you get this? Do you get the possibility that, and this is one of the great things about meditation and prayer, is that they are wonderful tools, not so much to plead or demand a change from God in the circumstances of our lives, but rather to open up a way through which we can access what we've always had, which is this phenomenal level of infinite intelligence and creativity that can answer any situation, any challenge, any question, any dilemma, any trouble or woe like that. The answer can be given. What then is our responsibility? To be open and receptive to it, to recognize, first of all, that we have this resource, that we're not out on some deserted island living without any support or without any guidance. It's there. It's just a matter of taking that deep breath and saying, I'm willing to let go of this. It's almost incessant need for the egoic self or the conditioned nature to call all the shots in my life. You know, the illustration I've used in the past, and I think it's still relevant, it's coming to mind, so here it goes, is that the egoic nature, the conditioned nature of ourselves is a little bit like my old dog Spirit, who no longer is on this plane of expression. But when she was, I loved her with all my heart. She was wonderful. She's the greatest dog I ever owned, and I believe maybe ever will own. But I never asked her to drive my car. I never asked her to pay my bills or to balance my bank account. And I didn't ask that of her because I knew she was a dog. And as a dog, she was a wonderful companion and she served an invaluable role in my life. But I wouldn't let her drive the car. Fortunately, she never wanted to. Wouldn't let her drive the car because I knew that's not what dogs do. So if you think about this egoic or conditioned nature, it does play a role in our day-to-day existence. It reminds us, I believe, to stop at red lights, to say, hey, how are you doing today, or whatever. It moves us through. It has its role, but it is not intended to live our life or to drive our automobile or to drive our life. It simply isn't equipped to do that. We ourselves are the ones who have put that conditioned egoic nature into the driver's seat and said, you drive the car, because there's no one else here to drive it. And that's the big oversight, is that there is something else to drive the car. It's what Way of Mastery is referring to as the comforter. There is a resource within us, and we can master the art of tapping into it. And we can master the art of allowing its way to be our way, allowing its will to be our will. Good evening, Otto. David Jackson, hey. Good evening, David. So this really then is, I'm glad you're here, David. Love you dearly. Spirit. Indeed. So that's really about it. I mean, obviously, this is a huge book. We could go on all night, but I think you have other things to do, and I'm sure that I do too. I'll leave you with one exercise that is in A Way of Mastery, and that's where it encourages you to try for 30 days. And with all due respect to Joshua, I think 30 days would be a long first attempt. But I do think we could try it for a day. When change appears on the path of our life, are we able to allow it? Are we able to trust it, especially in those moments when it may be seeming to move us or others that are close to us into positions or circumstances, situations that we would rather avoid? Can we remember that that's the moment to take the deep breath? And in that deep breath, relinquish control. And the funny thing is, friends, we never really had nearly as much control as we thought we did. To relinquish control, to trust that our lives are being lived by the greatest force that could possibly be living them, this infinite intelligence and creativity. And then move one step at a time, as resistance-free as possible, into the life we are intended to live, which I believe is a life of unconditional love, unconditional peace, unconditional joy, unconditional wholeness and health, unconditional abundance and wealth, and unconditionally loving relationships. Well, at this point in my life, there's little else I'm interested in. I still get pulled into other pursuits, but that's really where my heart is at. I thank you so much for being with me tonight on Shelf Discovery, and wish you all a wonderful Monday evening. We'll be back again next Monday night and every Monday night for as long as I can. I'm here. Have a beautiful evening. God bless you, and much love to all of you. Be well. Beautiful night.